So I just threw something out there. I'm doing great. I just threw something
I'm
out.
with you, by the way. Yeah, that take was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. One championship makes everything worth it, right? It's like, oh, we mortgaged 5 years of our – fine. You win a championship, and it's worth it.
Also, I have this belief in life. Smart people figure stuff out.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
You'll find your way back. Like Pete Carroll's like, all right, we had Russell Wilson. We didn't love him. We traded him. We got a bunch of draft picks. We hit on 5 of them. Geno's pretty good. Problem solved. Now I'll throw this at you. So in the NFL and college, here's the big difference. The players are younger in college. So Oregon, I watched them this weekend.
Smart take.
Oregon brings in a new quarterback, a new coach, new pieces.
I'm sorry. That was below the belt.
No preseason. They go to the South to face the national champions and get boat raced.
Yes.
I would punish Michigan, Clemson, Ohio State if they went down there and did that. But I've watched Oregon almost every week. Better. I am giving Oregon a mulligan on that game.
Well, I don't know if you can give a full mulligan.
How about half a mulligan?
Half a mulligan, and I think it depends on what happens in the SEC, and that's just kind of the nature of a 4-team playoff. Like, for instance, let's say for some reason Tennessee beats Georgia or Alabama in the SEC championship beats Georgia. Now Oregon's got a problem on their hands, right? Because then you're going to be matched up against the team that blew your doors off, and they're not going to win that argument. But what you're saying is partially correct, and I think it's part of the cruelty of the sport, and it's not the sport in general of football. It's college football. It's the cruelty of those important one-game pictures that we all tend to rely on in order to make these subjective opinions down the road. This sport is still about, and in particular with young people, as you so astutely said, in college, it's about getting better and developing. And I don't know if there's a team in America that has gotten better from week 1 until now than Oregon.
Oh,
and that is a huge feather in the cap for Dan Lanning in his first year as a head coach. He's done a marvelous job.
And Oregon has out-recruited everybody west of the Rockies for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, and it's going to be more difficult with Lincoln in here, but I mean, and Mario Cristobal was a big part of that.
Right now, that's the most talented 4 or 5-star roster on the West Coast.
In particular, Colin, on the offensive line, and that's really where they won the game. Wow. And I will also say this, like, everything went right for them. You know, they played one of those games. You get one of those days. It's a perfect day. Bo Nix plays his perfect game. You steal a possession with the onside kick. I still think UCLA is pretty good. I still think UCLA, they didn't get absolutely blown out. They kept coming back. They had to settle for field goals, which is why you see the margin where it's at. But I will say this about Oregon, and I think that it gets lost because of how far it is up there in the Pacific Northwest. And it's not 85,000 or 90 or 100,000. That's one of the great home field advantages in all of college football. And those fans, I tell you what, good on you. You guys were phenomenal on Saturday, and that environment looked great.
Yeah, I don't buy into this. It was one of those everything's right days. I think that's what Oregon is.
How was it not that they played their best game? Everything went right for them. What went wrong, Colin?
Well, I had a perfect day yesterday. You know what I called it? Tuesday. Sometimes I'm so obnoxious, I bother me. Okay.
That's amazing. That was great. I loved it.
All right. So I have, when I'm into something, I'm into something.
Sure, I get it.
And I'll support you to the end. Took a lot of shots on Harbaugh. Now Uncle Colin's walking around, little smug.
A little.
Okay.
Listen, I'm with you, by the way. I'm with you on this one.
Uncle Colin supported Brian Kelly, even his cringiness, because college football is about selling stuff.
That's true.
You got to sell that I love the South. I am part of you. Fight song, I know it. You memorize it on the private jet down to the press conference. You're memorizing that fight song as if you've known it for 30 years. I'm part of you. Give me some Cajun love. Give me some right.
Yes.
I watched them this weekend.
They've gotten better, man. They've gotten better. They've gotten better.
Played Alabama today. Would it be close? I think it would be.
It might. And by the way, Bama's going to have to go there next week, and it's going to be a night game. So, I mean, listen, I still think Bama's the better team. I think we would all say that. Now, Bama struggles on the road, and we've seen that a couple of times this year and then last year as well. I thought Daniels played great. I thought he did a great job. And this is one of the things. I want to go back to what I told you. We talked about Brian Kelly earlier in the year.
Yes.
And I remember what I said, and I said, he just needs to step back a little bit, like get out of the limelight, stop being the story.
Right.
And I said that he was dangerously close to becoming, out of step. And it's like perception is reality in recruiting, and you don't want to be the cringy guy that dances weird, right? You don't want to be the butt of the joke. Well, to his credit, he kind of stepped behind, right? And he just kind of went back into the back room and started getting better. And now all of a sudden, what's coming to the forefront is his ability to coach and not his ability to entertain. And he's a much better coach than he is entertainer.
Yeah.
And so now what you're seeing is that ability. And you and I both agree, and I've sat right here on this couch and talked to you about how he was a really good coach at Notre Dame. And one of the best coaches in college football, and they would just win, and they were tough. And did they win the national championship? No, but they didn't have the players to go and compete with some of those other teams.
That's why he took the job.
And so he goes to LSU, and guess what? He's still the same coach. So if he just steps back a little bit and he says, you know what, I'm probably not an entertainer, and maybe don't do the dance with the spinning camera and all that and be the butt of the joke, guess what? I can still coach, and that's certainly what's coming to the forefront.
Okay, so supported Harbaugh to the end. Support Brian Kelly to the end. I'm wobbling a little bit on Sark. So a friend, I like Sark.
Yeah.
But I look at data. That's what I do on my weekends. A lot of you guys are out there having a good time. Head into data. Cowards at home, head into data.
Oh, so what did that data tell you?
Well, a friend of mine who likes Sark, and I've been trying to convince him forever on Sark, he said, how come he always loses these crazy leads in these crazy games?
Yeah.
I'd like to see some wins. And he said the other thing was he hired a good defensive coordinator who had a great reputation, and now they don't play defense again. And I said, you're right. And I said, Texas is a weird program. I love it. But it's a glamour program. It's not a bunch of grinders. It's five-star. USC's got a little bit of this. Pete Carroll changed it. USC is fun and glossy. I remember one time they went to Boston College, there was a light drizzle, and the USC players were like, what?
They were like, hold
cloud?
on, what's going on?
There are these programs. Georgia is a tough program. They get Georgia kids. They always have been. Even when I don't like them, Georgia's always tough. Bama's tough. Penn State, don't always love them. Texas and USC got a little glamour, and I watch them, and I'm like, okay, I've watched this program for 30 years. They figure the offense out all the time.
Sure.
Even with coaches they fire.
Sure.
What is it with defense in Texas?
Well, I think it's conference related.
Okay.
Not many teams play great defense in that conference.
Okay.
I think Oklahoma State did a year ago, but part of that was Jim Knowles, who's now the coordinator at Ohio State. Exactly. It's right. Like, it's just one of those things. So I've done a lot of talking with defensive coaches in the Big 12, and one of the things that they say, you see that long pass right there? Yeah. Offensive play callers in the Big 12 are so much more willing to gamble. Yeah. They're more aggressive than any other conference, and it just puts a lot of pressure on defenses. I'm not giving Texas's defense a pass because they didn't tackle well, and that was one of the problems a year ago. But I would tell you that there are times when they are improving. It's one of the reasons they brought in Gary Patterson to be the special assistant to the head coach so that he could try to help on the defensive side of the football. I think that they're trying to get better at the line of scrimmage. But remember, this is a year in which we're seeing TCU kind of run the conference. That's not a great defense, right? I mean, they're getting in shootouts. Oklahoma State's not a great defense. Oklahoma has given up 40 points per game in 4 straight games.
So it's conference.
I think that there's some of that to it, right? Like, you get in these Big 12 matchups, and it's going to be a Hail Mary fest to some degree, right? Yeah. Like, they're going to throw haymakers, and I think there's part of that in it. I would disagree with people on this. Texas is really close. Right, it's small things that you got to fix at Texas, right? Like, their 3 losses are by a combined 7 points. There's your data for you. Let's get into the data, Colin, right? Combined 7 points. Quinn Ewers, that was basically his first road start in conference play. That's going to be difficult for a young quarterback. Do we really think that Quinn Ewers is going to throw for 40% ongoing? No. Right? Do we really think that Bijan Robinson is going to fumble the ball in overtime like he did against Texas Tech? No. Do we really think that they're going to have a wild safety, non-safety call against Alabama? No. These are small things that Texas is almost there in terms of getting to the point where they can win consistently. I still think this is going to be an 8-9 win team, maybe even 10 win if they run the table and win a bowl game. I still think that they're a really good team. And by the way, all the data bears that out. In the FPI, they're 6th in the country. In the Sagarin ratings, they're 11th in the country. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. In the Uncle Colin ratings, they're 24th. That's what I see. Win these damn close games. That's what I see.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. I got a new ratings out there. That's what I do on weekends.
The Uncle Colin ratings.
Okay.
I love it.
So a lot of times in life, you see something, and it's not the truth. Mike Evans, he's getting an autograph for an official in a tunnel, Tampa Bay. And we find the real story is
sure.
He was giving him a number to a friend, a golf coach. So I've said this through the years. When I watch an SEC team, a Big 12 team, or even a Pac-12 team come out of their conference, I have a sense of who they are.
Sure. I would say that even in the Big Ten as well.
That's my pushback. Ohio State, until this year, maybe the end of last year with Michigan, recruits at such a different level than the conference. I mean, Oregon recruits well, but so does USC.
Yeah.
Oklahoma recruits well. So does Texas. That Ohio State can come out of their conference, and I'm like, and then I see them going to bowl games, and I'm like, yeah, that's Purdue. Nothing against Purdue. That's Minnesota. So this is why I think the elevation of Michigan, Buckeye fans would never admit it, is great. Because I think when they play Michigan, that's the first time in a decade I feel like, Michigan can play with Alabama now.
Right.
Michigan can play with Georgia. But I will say this with Ohio State. A prime example, in the history of the NFL, they've never had one great quarterback. Why? Because that's not the real world, having 32 feet of separation from Illinois' corner. And I do worry to this point, is Ohio State great, or are they really good and beaten up on nonsense?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think you can pose the same question about Clemson right now.
I do not buy that at all.
Well, then you're wrong.
You like Clemson.
No, I said you can say the same about Clemson. I don't know how good Clemson is.
I don't think they are. They can't throw the ball.
Well, that's the problem, right? And so you're I thought you were suggesting you don't know how good Ohio State is.
They're better than Clemson, no question.
I agree with you.
But do we get fooled with Ohio State?
Maybe. And I'm not sure. And by the way, I was talking with a couple of the scouts, and I don't want to throw their names out, but we were chatting on the sideline before the game last week, Ohio State and Iowa, and we were talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., for instance.
Boy, is he good.
He's going to be good. And by the way, during the broadcast, I said and still believe I think he's going to be the best receiver in the world in 2026 or 2027.
Incredible.
He's an incredible player. Emeka Ibuka, same thing. They've got some offensive linemen in there. The tackles are going to be NFL players. There's NFL players everywhere. Stroud, NFL player, but really tough evaluation because of exactly what you're talking about, right? Matt Leinart dealt with this, and I've talked to Matt about it. It's like, his supporting cast is so much better than the opposition.
In the Big Ten.
As a quarterback, it would be like, can you imagine if a NASCAR driver got to go out there and break all the rules with the car and make it just like faster, stronger, no restrictor plate, and then just go race the race? How good do you know? Is the driver really good or is the car really good?
Right.
And I think that there's some of that with Ohio State. So I'm not disagreeing with you. Having said that, though, they are doing what they should do, and Stroud is doing what he should do if you are that much better than your competition, which is thoroughly dominate them. I was mixed on that performance from Ohio State over Iowa this last week.
Choppy.
No one would say they played even well, even average to a certain extent. They settled for too many field goals. They turned the ball over. They couldn't run the ball. There were a lot of warts on that game, right? And then you look up, and it's 54-10. So it's like, well, isn't that kind of scary if they don't even have to play close to their best and they can beat Iowa 54-10?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of scary, all in the same breath. So all of those things are still true. I think that Michigan and the elevation of that program over the last couple of years, I think is going to help Ohio State during the course of the end of this year. I'm with you. It's a tough one, but I do think that this year those two programs are very, very good. Very good.
Okay.
And I don't know about Clemson. Let's say Clemson's the only team right now in the top 10 that has had to yank their starting quarterback in order to come back and win a game at home.
Okay. Klatt's top 10. So I forget the order. I think you have the top 5 right.
Okay.
I think you're.
And Clemson's not in there for those of you,
I think Oregon beats Clemson soundly.
Probably.
Soundly. I don't know if Utah does. So I don't have a problem with this. So I want to segue to this. And by the way, for our radio listeners, he's got Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Michigan, Bama top 5. Totally agree. He's got Oregon 8. I think I'd put Oregon 6.
Okay.
And I think Oregon can play with all these guys. And don't tell me Ohio State's too good because I saw him go to Columbus last year and punch in the forehead.
Sure.
So they can play. And I think Oregon's better this year. All right. So a lot of times I'll be walking throughout the streets of rural America. And I will randomly bump into journalists.
Will you?
All the time. I'll be walking in coffee shops in small town America.
Yeah, all the time?
Yeah, all the time. Couple days a week. And the journalists will come up to me and say...
Like which? Give me an example of one of these small towns.
Enid, Oklahoma. I was there last week. So I'm in these small towns, and I'm talking to America. And a journalist will come up to me, and he'll say, hey, I'm a journalist. You set the bar for journalism. This happens all the time to me. So I'm going to propose something, and this is journalism and nothing more. And I strongly believe that. I strongly believe this.
Go ahead. What do you got?
USC is not losing the rest of this year. They're going to face Utah again. They got a break. They're going to face Utah again. USC will not lose the rest of the year.
I can't do that.
Why?
I think UCLA is still better than USC.
Would your TV not work Saturday? What
it worked. It worked totally fine. By the way, that was still a pretty good UCLA team. Again, everything went right for Oregon in an unbelievable environment, and there they are. They're still right there.
What is this? Everything went right for.
What do you mean? How do you say it didn't go right? Bo Nix played the best game he's played in 3 years.
Does Bo Nix get no credit for it?
Well, I'm just saying everything went right. I give him credit. Everything went right. Everything you intended to do happened, and you get an onside kick. You force the field goals. The environment is incredible. I mean, so. Yes, I think Oregon's really good. I also still think UCLA is really good. UCLA is kind of kryptonite for USC because of their toughness in their run game. Zach Charbonnet is big and physical, and I don't know if UCLA or excuse me, USC is going to be able to handle that.
That's an interesting theory. I call everything going right Tuesday. You call it the greatest performance in Bo Nix's history. But if you watch that game...
Well, if it's Tuesday, then they're going to do it again this week, and then next week, and then the week after.
Okay.
And by the way, their history at Cal is not great. I don't think Oregon covers this week. They're favored by 18 at a place that they lost in 2020. Last year, they only won by 7 against Cal. And 3 years ago, it was 17-7. I think Oregon might be in for a dogfight this week because everything went right last week, and they're going to have a letdown. You got that, Jason?
I want to talk about a hooker. I'm not going where you think. Wait, time out. What are you guys saying?
I was going to
run
off the set.
Your minds are in the gutter. I'm in small town America, Enid, Oklahoma, talking to the real people.
What's the Enid paper? Where was this journalist? Where did he work?
We didn't get into that.
Oh, I'm interesting.
So I want to talk about Hendon Hooker.
Oh.
Okay, so this is crazy. First of all, he's big.
That's crazy?
He's 25.
That's crazy.
I think he's a professor at the university.
Isn't he turning 25 right after the national championship game?
I don't know. I mean, I know guys that are still in college at 34.
You set the bar for journalism, so let's set it right after the national championship game.
What am I to make of this quarterback who before the season, nobody had him on a top first-round quarterback? What do I make of Hendon Hooker?
Well, so do you want a draft evaluation?
I'm just saying, when you see him, this is what you do for a living. It's very rare.
He's impressive. He's very impressive. He is a late riser in the vein of a late Baker Mayfield in his career, a Joe Burrow in his career, a Mac Jones in his career.
Fair.
Where late in their career, after a lot of reps, you're all of a sudden like, wait, hold on a second. This is clearly a first-round draft pick at the quarterback position. He throws the ball beautifully.
Accurate.
He's got a command of the offense that has grown over the course of time. And I think this week is actually one of those kind of benchmark weeks. So they're going to face Kentucky this week.
Oh, watch out.
And you go back to last year, and Kentucky's defense was pretty good, right? And Kentucky and Mark Stoops has done a nice job. And that was the first time that Hendon Hooker threw for 300 yards, was against Kentucky and that good defense a year ago. And since then, he's thrown for 300 4 different times, and they're 9-2 as a program. That was a benchmark game, that win over Kentucky, and they're facing him again this week. What I make for this guy is that he has put himself clearly on the level with C.J. Stroud as a Heisman frontrunner at this point. He's put himself in position where if they win next week, he's going to walk with the Heisman Trophy because of the big wins that they would have in the regular season. And he's playing himself into I said it last week, to the top 10 of the NFL drafts. He makes good decisions. He throws the ball on time. It's on target. And he's got a really, really good disposition, too. He's calm. He makes quick decisions. I like what I see from him.
He doesn't get rattled after a host throws a curveball at him.
That's right. Like if someone comes up to him and is like, I want to talk about a hooker, he'd just be like,
you got rattled for a second.
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
I did get rattled.
Okay. He's got a podcast. It's actually pretty good. Not that I'm discouraged with that. It's a little bit of a surprise that it's good. Klatt every Saturday does the big noon kickoff. Ohio State at Penn State 3 times a week. He does this podcast. Joel does Unfiltered Thoughts. It's really good. Are you giving the public that little list thing you do and you give to me? Do you give them that yet?
No.
Boy, I wish you
I
would.
don't.
That's really good. Klatt goes out here. When I'm buried in data, he's out having a good time. But he comes back on the flight from his game, and he does this chart of the top 20. You should sell that. That's a newsletter. You should sell that thing. I love that thing.
It's a good idea.
I'd make it a newsletter. Why don't you go to the bosses and create a website or something?
Let's do it. You hear that, management? Heading up to the 5th floor.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.